How do you do, everybody? I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Ronald Reagan. A few months ago, I was a sports announcer on a radio station in Des Moines, Iowa. One day I ran into one of these movie talent scouts. I think I caught him off guard because the next thing I knew, I was taking a screen test for Warner Brothers in Hollywood. I guess it was okay. At least I liked Hollywood, so here I am. They did everything they could to make me feel at home, too. The first picture, well, what do you think it was about? A radio station. Would you like to see a few scenes? Stick around a minute. I got to pull with the operator. Hey, give me an entrance, will you?
And don't bring politics into your program again. So far as murders are concerned, you can leave them to the police department. But I won't sponsor a broadcast devoted to the malicious slandering of our city's leading citizens. That is final. Good night.
If Nichols drops out, we're left with a sustaining program on our hands. There isn't a firm in town with nerve enough to sponsor a spot he puts his finger on. My job is spreading news. That guy and his mayor brother-in-law are in with Nicey Ferguson's gang. Mr. Nichols is riding for a fall. And you're the mattress he's going to fall on. Introducing your news commentator, Andy McCain, and his regular broadcast of hot news with the courtesy of E.E. Nichols Department Store. Hello again, folks. Here's something hot right off the griddle. George Copeland, who promised to start his war against the city's gambling syndicate today, has been missing from his home since yesterday morning. As yet, there hasn't been a single clue as to his whereabouts.
Well, I can't call you Uncle anymore.
And I can't call you Auntie anymore.
What shall I call you?
Come here. What are you doing the rest of your life? Girl in that last scene is June Travis. Nice girl. As I said before, I think I'm going to like Hollywood. She had me in the doghouse for a while in this picture, but I managed to get out of that all right. Then there's Robert Barron, a swell actor, even though we quarreled in the story. Eddie Acuff gets a lot of laughs with his comedy role. Well, that's all I can tell you about the picture, except that when you see it, I hope you like it. If you have a little spare time, why, drop me a line at Warner Brothers Studios in Hollywood. I'll see you in the movies.
Ronald, as you travel around the country now, not as an actor, but almost a representative for your way of thinking as far as government policies are concerned, do you feel that maybe you've left something behind as far as acting career is concerned?
Well, I hope not, because frankly, I still think of myself as an actor and want to be. And I don't know, there doesn't seem to be too much of it, as long as I can get acting jobs.
But you don't seem to be doing too badly here on GE Theater. We see you every week here on TV8.
Yes, I understand that we just learned recently that after 8 long years, the normal sponsor itch set in, and so this is the last season for GE Theater.
Well, what do you have in mind past that time?
I don't know. I've been in the nest so long, I'm still blinking in the sunlight now, and I do find I'm getting kind of a kick out of looking around and seeing the different courses that are available. After all, progress is my most important progress. The product, too.
I understand that. But on these trips around the country where you make speaking engagements on behalf of our American heritage, like you are here in San Diego today, were you sort of representing the General Electric Company?
Well, they sponsored, as a part of the show, a number of weeks of touring each year. But they never, in any way in all these 8 years, have ever suggested a subject to me, or a change of subject, or even argued a choice of words. I have been free to say whatever I wanted to say, and my subject has been my own choosing.
Do they happen to agree with your policies?
Well, that's such a big company, and it is so decentralized that it would be, I'm sure, the same as with the audience and the public, that there is a wide divergence there, too. There are some who do, and there are some who don't. And it isn't the kind of a company where there's any one man who says, you know, I'm the boss, I run the show. This is a very decentralized company and made up of a number of branches, and being in the public relations end of it. Our show, you see, didn't sell any particular product. As you know, our show was the institutional show. So actually, all of these various components of the company had a little financial stake in the show. So sometimes I argued with some of them, and sometimes I agreed with some of them.
The reason I ask is not often the fellow in your stature and position as an actor would take upon himself to, say, back a political candidate, as you did Richard Nixon.
Well, I don't know. Frank Sinatra and the boys were over on the other side. For the other candidate, There's been more of this in Hollywood than people are prepared to realize. Back through every campaign, I can remember the people in our business, just like in any community, getting worked up and staging rallies, and some of them, like Frank, didn't attempt to make speeches. They went out and sang songs, and somebody else made the speech. Well, I don't happen to be able to sing. And there was no sense in hurting my candidate's chances by trying. So, you know, in Hollywood, if you can't sing or dance, you wind up being an after-dinner speaker.
Well, I don't know that that's such a bad wind-up, Ronald Reagan.
It's hard on the digestion.
Yes.
Modern lighting makes a great deal of difference in the way you live. Now, this is an open court off our living room. Eye-catching, isn't it? The lighting is pale blue, very cool looking. This, of course, is our living room. You know, Nancy, we'll see Patty later on.
Hello. Our lighting in here is rather interesting, too. See? Over the sofa and over each chair are individual lights built right into the ceiling. They do marvelous things for the room.
Around the edges of the room, set in the ceiling, are rows of fluorescents. They bathe the walls in light, make the room more alive and cheerful. And bigger, too. Notice?
Now, over here in the dining room, the mood's entirely different. See, up there in the ceiling? Around the chandelier are a string of lights, 12 of them, like a necklace of jewels.
Some are pink, some gold, and some blue-white. When they're all on together, we have a white effect. By turning the knobs of this dimmer, we can change the colors, mix them, and get different effects.
You can have a warm yellow tone, or a more flattering pink, or a cool blue. I wish you could see the colors.
We can make the lights softer, or bring them up higher. Now I want to show you the most exciting thing.
Now, let's save the big surprise till last, shall we?
All right. Lighting helps us live better all over the house. Now, if this weren't a company night, we'd probably find Nancy in the bedroom.
Reading, and the light's just perfect for it. The correct distance up and behind. And look at this. A switch that controls the lights all over the house, inside and out. I press the button, they go on instantly.
Patty might be in her playroom. That's her doll, Cynthia, she's playing with. Notice the lights. They look like Japanese lanterns, and they're just as colorful. Meanwhile, back in the den, Papa Reagan might be going over his script. And that's ideal, soft, over-the-shoulder light. So you see how modern light conditioning helps us have a more livable house.
You haven't forgotten the surprise, have you?
No, ma'am. We have a dimmer control for the living room, too. Watch when I turn it down.
Isn't it lovely? That's the view from our picture windows.
Well, those are some of the things we've done with lighting in our home. Might give you some ideas to help you see better and look better and live better in your home, and to make your surroundings more colorful and cheerful.
We hope so, because we'd like everybody to find out how wonderful it is.
Governor Reagan, at the Republican Governors Conference in Tulsa, the consensus was that for 2 days you conducted yourself like a candidate for your party's presidential or vice presidential nomination. Do you still maintain you're not a possible contender for either office?
No, and I would be hard put to know where anyone got that idea. I attended all of the meetings. I don't know of anything I did on the outside except agree to a press conference, which was asked of me. And other than that, I was in the meetings where the press wasn't present or none of the public.
In Tulsa, Oklahoma, at the Republican Governors Conference, in color, Face the Nation, a spontaneous and unrehearsed news interview with Governor Ronald Reagan of California. Governor Reagan will be questioned by CBS News correspondent Bill Stout, Paul Hope of the Washington Star, and CBS News correspondent Martin Nagronsky. We shall resume the interview with Governor Reagan in a moment.
Governor, I wonder if we can go back to that question. Do you still maintain you're not a possible contender for either the presidential or vice presidential office?
Well, I'm certainly not a contender for the latter, for the vice presidential office. I think technically you'd have to recognize that anyone who is a favorite son candidate, even though he is a favorite son candidate only in the sense of directing a delegation or hoping to, that technically at the convention he is a candidate. He is entered in nomination and would be a candidate if the party chose to consider him as such.
Well, now, really, you're more than technically a candidate, aren't you?
Well, you mean at the convention?
I mean, now, at the convention, anytime.
Well, I certainly am not now. I haven't injected myself into this race, nor would I. But at the convention, as I say, I use the word technically because it is true that you actually are placed in nomination. That's true of me as well as a number of other favorite son candidates. And I have said for some time that I believe this is going to be an open convention. And therefore, if the delegates choose to consider other than the announced candidates, they'll do so.
When you say that you haven't conducted yourself here, Governor, as a possible contender, you're talking perhaps about your own attitude. But what do you think of the attitudes of the people? The people and the delegates decide who will run. You don't really decide for yourself, and no man going into a convention does.
Bill, I've said this for a long time. I think the people do. This job seeks rather than someone seeking it. And this you have very little control over. I'm aware of a great many people who have expressed this belief with regard to me, and I'm greatly honored, as I've said before, that anyone should consider me in that light. But I can again say that I have been doing my job, and I have done nothing to encourage or to try and set up any organization to promote that sort of thing.
Well, Governor, let's carry you. You carried yourself a step further, at least. Now we have you saying you're not considering yourself as a contender for the vice presidential nomination, but you can't help it if you go as a favorite son, which makes you a contender for the presidential nomination. Now, could you address yourself to this? Which candidate of the two men who do say they want to be president get the presidential nomination on the Republican ticket, Nixon or Rockefeller? With which of those two could you most easily make common cause?
Well, now I have to not only be evasive, I just have to avoid the answer. Because I have asked our own delegation. We have only had one organizing meeting so far, and that was prior to the official placing them on the ballot or getting them recognized on the ballot as the delegation. I've asked all of our delegates to not give any opinion as to who they might favor when, if the time comes to make a move in some direction, in order to ensure the very unity that caused us to have a single delegation to begin with. Now, it'd hardly behoove me now to come on television nationwide and announce a preference of my own. I just can't do it.
Well, as governor of the largest state in the Union, don't you feel some obligation to lead the people?
Oh, yes.
To tell them who you're for?
No, we ran on the basis of a broad-based delegation in which if we were for someone in advance, we would have sought a delegation of people who were pledged or who leaned in that same direction. We didn't. In the interest of unity, which was the whole purpose of this, we have a delegation from California that represents the whole spectrum of the California Party. We have people who are actively in support of various candidates on that delegation and who have had past support for those delegates. Now, the idea of not having an open primary in the interest of unity was so that at the convention, when all the facts are in and it is time to make a decision for who we think will be the winner and the next president of the United States, to say nothing of platform decisions, that hopefully our delegation can resolve its differences within itself and operate as a unit for the best interest not only of the country, but of our party.
Aren't you really playing it a little cozy, expecting that something's going to develop for you at the convention?
No, I don't think so. As a matter of fact, the only thing I can give you by way of proof of sincerity is, and Bill being a Californian knows this, that I was the one who was opposed to a favorite son candidacy. And this was announced the day after I was elected at a joint press conference with Bob Finch, the lieutenant governor, and Bob publicly stated then he was going to do everything he could to convince me I should be one in the interest of unity. And the result was the party leaders and our state central committee officers were the ones who persuaded me that I should be the favorite son candidate.